is 30 minutes or so. So we're going to do blended learning, the 30-minute version. I have a book from 2006 on blended learning. We go through definitions, advantages, disadvantages, examples, models, all that. Basically, chapters 1 and 33 of my book are on the web for free at publicationship.com. Chapter 1 explains everything. It's an edited book. My co-editor of the book, Charles Graham at BYU, wrote that. It's brilliant. Mine's on the future of chapter 33. It's not so good. But, yeah.
I just let you know, we have that book he's just referencing, and all of these slides he's given today, the recording of the actual presentations, all of this, his resources, his blog, his pages, are going to be made available. I can put them together when it goes out to you early next week.
And I do want to thank Pat. I do have a book, this 100 Activities book signed for you, Pat. And my world is open signed for you. And I have 2 books left to give away. And I do want to acknowledge the person that had the meaningful answer. He's got his coffee mug in front of him. We're going with the men right now, and Lou over here. That means I have to only get females gifts from here on in. There you go. All right, blended learning A to Z, missing models and movements. Who needs blended? Is it people in a nursing home? Is it kids from high school? Is it teachers getting retrained in the far reaches of Malaysia? Is it parents coming home from work? Is it people stuck in hurricanes? And I was I was going to Houston before Hurricane Ike a year and a half ago, and they said, "Don't come down. We're not going to have your top hot, for another 6 months." So what are you doing for your classes? They said, "We're doing hybrid or blended learning." Now, hybrid means the interbreeding of 2 or more species of animals to create a mongrel. I'll go with blended learning. The dictionary of hybrid means what blended means. But anyways, they were doing blended learning at Houston because of hurricanes. And Hurricane Katrina caused people to shift to online learning. The Sloan Foundation provided free classes after it. Earthquakes. Chile, Western China. Volcanoes. I was coming back from Saudi Arabia in April, and I was in the Charles de Gaulle airport. We left 2 hours before they closed that puppy down. I've been stuck there for weeks, and the people who were stuck there were doing online learning. They're teaching their class in the airport. Snowmageddon, ice storms. You know about ice storms here in Snowmageddon last year in D.C. We were interviewing people at George Mason. And people at George Mason said the fact that we were against blended learning and online until Snowmageddon. It's unfortunate that blizzards, that SARS, that H1N1, hurricanes open people up to the possibilities to learn online. We're reactive instead of being proactive. But SARS opened up the Chinese government to online learning. They outlawed it, they banned it, and they only allowed certain colleges to offer it. And then SARS hit, and they were doing blended all over the place. H1N1, I got a call from someone in Mongolia in October. She's applying for my program, and she said, "Have you seen TD Lesson?" I said, "What's TD Lesson?" She said, "Oh, it's online experts, and we're using it." I said, "Well, why are you using it?" I had never heard of it. She said, the H1N1 outbreak in Mongolia was so significant, kids weren't allowed to go to school. So they're doing online stuff. Is blended the solution just for these natural catastrophes, or can it also help with working adults who have catastrophes in their daily lives, with kids needing to get to school and diapers needing to be changed and all sorts of other things that are personal catastrophes of sorts? There's so many people whose lives can be changed by a little bit of flexibility in one's classes. And with all the resources we have today, the perplexing thing is, why aren't we doing it? The perplexing thing is also, how can we do it?
Look, sir, droid.
These droids are people that helped me write my handbook of blended learning. They came from all over the world, from Malaysia, from Singapore, from Australia, from the World Bank, from the UK. They come from all over the world. And they helped me define what blended learning is. I said blended learning is 30 to 80% of a course online. Less than 30% is web facilitated. More than that's considered fully online. It's a rough thing. I think more than 1% online is blended, but who's counting, you know? I think anything online is considered blended, even up to maybe 95, but this is a guideline. So one myth is that people know what you say when you're talking about blended learning. Well, they might not know. Another myth is that blend is the same as hybrid. I gave you that definition. Another myth is that knowing how much to blend is important. Well, the Sloan Foundation and the Pew Foundation funded a lot of introductory college classes with more technology. And they found it didn't matter where on the continuum they blended. If you blended 1/3 or half or 2/3 of the whole class or just added PowerPoint, it didn't matter. In each case, achievement scores went up, retention was better. Actually, achievement went up in 25 out of 30 cases, 5 showed no difference. The huge success story of integrating technology that few people know about. It's been put up at the Pew Foundation website, and it didn't matter how much you blend, 42%, 43%. I was actually asked that one. The how much doesn't matter. It's thoughtful integration of the technology that matters. It's the combination. Blended learning is the combination of face-to-face and online. This is the easy definition. Myth number 4 is that blended learning is easy to define. Myth number 5, blended learning is hard to define. It's somewhere in between. You know, some people will use a kitchen sink approach. Everything is in it. Well, Charles, my co-editor of the book, says we've moved from a computer, from a face-to-face age to a computer-mediated age, and blended's in between. We have physicality, meeting people, high senses, low lag time, short lag time, feedback happens right away, high humanness, and with computers we can think for a long period of time. People can be located all around the world. We get the best of both worlds. He says in the past, distance learning and face-to-face were separate. When I took courses to get into grad school, I had to take them separately as Ph.D. and correspondence. Today, they overlap and we call it blended. In the future, we're just going to call it learning again. So where is blended learning going to be beneficial? In particular, classes that are theory classes, in particular classes that are writing intensive, in particular classes where the certifications change, where the standards change fast, like with the Enron crisis changing the accounting profession. I took an ethics exam. They gave me the manual. It took me an hour to read it and become ethical. Okay? Now they have new ethical standards as a result of Enron. You think about the medical profession, the engineering profession, all sorts that can't get things in the book fast enough. Online learning can get content out faster when things change so dramatically. When students are working, when students are spread out over a long distance, when students might be in larger classes where you can get more interaction with them online and discussion and answer their specific questions because we don't have time now. We can talk on the phone, online. We can put up pre-assessments, post-assessments. We can put up reference materials. How many of you have put up reference materials, supplements into your class? I wanted to say stuff, but how many of you, almost everybody's put some stuff, some reference materials in their classes. How many of you in here have put up final exams online? Wow, that's more than I expected. Okay. All sorts of things. Experts can be brought in. What they find in terms of the research is that papers are better written when they're blended, more time to reflect, scores are higher, there's more convenience, more flexibility, higher papers, less physical parking meets, less gas being used. Some campuses, some colleges today are doing a class where it's a Tuesday-Thursday class where they have 2 sections. One section meets on Tuesdays, one meets on Thursdays, and the opposite day is an online day. So they blend in that way. That's one way to think about blended. Another myth out there is that faculty can have a logical discussion with administrators about blended. You leave at that point. I'll see you all later. You know that faculty are talking about levels 1 and 2. Administrators are talking about 3 and 4. See, faculty are talking about a course they're working on. Faculty are talking about a debate they had in class that they put to the web because they didn't finish it. That's blended for them. Administrators are saying, hey, these students are all over the state. Maybe we need to not have so many face-to-face meetings for all courses in that program. We're going to blend it at the programmatic level like the online MBA at Indiana. The students only come in the summer for a week, 2 different summers. That's how they blend that. The administrators decide, not the faculty, not the students. That's blending at the programmatic level. Institutional level, that might be saying, hey, the University of Phoenix is going to have a 5-week class where the first week is face-to-face and the last week is face-to-face, and the 3 weeks in between are online. That's for every class in their blended program. That's an institutional decision. So there's institutional decisions, there's programmatic, there's course level, there's activity level. So Charles teaches his class, he has students and instructors. They don't finish class, so they go online. That's deciding at the activity level or course level. Or you might have students and instructors face-to-face, and some come in remotely. He's decided on that, okay? Or instructors, multiple instructors coming to help out. Now, at the online MBA program in Indiana, they're deciding that they're going to have these students come face-to-face to campus in the summer for a week or two. That's an administrator deciding, not the college instructor deciding. Most blended programs are like this. A bookend model. We have an online experience first, an online experience at the end, and a face-to-face in the middle. Or they wipe this out, they start here, face-to-face, and they move online. That's called the anchor model. You anchor in face-to-face with what they're familiar in, and you move to online. You have a bookend model, an anchor model, there's others, alternating models. Those are different ways to think about blended. There is no one best model. We have 39 chapters. We have 39 different models in my handbook of blended. As you know, everybody does it differently. What you do here at Clarke will be different from what's done down the street at University of Dubuque or wherever in terms of blended learning. University of Phoenix, as I said, has a blended model. They have 2 models. It's the smallest cohort that they have is blended. But they're putting a lot of time in at Phoenix on blended because it's their growingest model. And they have a local model, 5 weeks of the course. The first and last weeks are face-to-face in the local model. And distance model, where students fly in, they do half of the first week and half of the last week face-to-face, and 4 weeks are online. So it depends on the type of students. They change the model around. IBM, right here, you got 7,000 new employees coming into IBM. Well, they got a model of leadership training. All 4 phases used to be face-to-face. Now, 3/4 are online, 1/4 is face-to-face. They start with cases that students solve with computer feedback. They now might move to scenarios and other problems, also with computer feedback. These are quick views, webcasts, webbooks. Level 3, they have human feedback online and computer feedback of communities of practice and e-labs, and asynchronous discussions and virtual discussions. Level 4, they meet humans face-to-face, finally. Now, the military, the National Guard, was doing something like this. I studied this we did research with them in the early part of this decade. They had a year of asynchronous, they never met, and 6 months tactical maneuver training at their local center, synchronous every Saturday, and then face-to-face 3 weeks at Fort Knox. And students dropped out like flies. And the reason was they did asynchronous with no feedback from here. There's no instructor. Going back to your question about, so they added in retired colonels and generals and all sorts of things to give feedback to people, and that increased retention. Myth number 10, if you read enough research, you'll be able to know what's going on in terms of blended learning. Well, there's so many models and so many different approaches. You can distill this down like the federal government report. You can distill it down to the Stanford Research Institute did in a meta-analysis. But this is a constantly changing target. There's new ways to approach it. Had they not found blended as best, how many people would have given up on it? I was kind of surprised they found that blended was the best model and actually fully online was the second best. There's so many things that can go on in research, as you all know, confounding variables, sample size, comparability between the groups that were studied. Would people have given up? I think we're still too early stage to say that's the best. It's a good study, but we need more. We need more data still. And this is only a short history of a lot of this. In 2002, there was a meta-analysis done of 200 studies. Only 15 were comparable. So we're still at the early stages of all this. This more recent one came out in 2009. Okay, I'm going to walk you through 13 problems of blended learning and 35 solutions. And blended learning is even as simple as training monkeys, as you can see. Okay, first problem, we lack face-to-face experiences. Students lack face-to-face experiences. We only get them for a week. We only get them for a day. If you only got students for an hour, a day, a week, what can you do? Any guesses? What are you going to do with students if you only see them for that brief moment in time? Yeah?
Set the goals and outcomes.
Set the
Goals
and outcomes. Tell them what's going to happen. Right? Good. You've been participating all day.
Gosh, no, let me give that to someone else.
Here's some ideas. Here's some ideas for you in your classes. You could have them meet in teams and have competitions. You can have them do a portfolio, start one. You can have them do a podcast. You can have them go to the library, check out the resources you're going to use. You can have them do a scavenger hunt. You can, have them test their passwords. You can have them text message each other to get their phones in. You can have them brainstorm how you're going to use technology. All these things are possible. You can assign teams and have competitions between teams. You can do paired introductions. Critical frame can be assigned. Lots of stuff you can do in that one day, 1 hour, 1 week. So think about those brief moments in time. Second problem, students are absent. Now, in my Saturday morning class in the spring, I stream all the classes. So if students are absent, they can watch them. You may think that's more talking heads, and it's worthless. But I had a student, his name was Boyd, and Boyd came to see me and said, Dr. Bonk, I'm in your boring theory class, and I heard your creativity class is pretty exciting on Saturday mornings. Can I take your creativity class? I said, Boyd, we're 2 weeks in, it's an 8-week class, you can't. Coming back the next day, it's true story, knocks on the door. My father teaches in the School of Business, Dr. Behager. He says, I should take your class, the creativity class. I said, I like your father, but you're not getting in. Goodbye, and you're bothering me. Third day, he walks back, knocks on the door, he says, Dr. Bonk, you streamed the class, I can watch the stream and catch up. I said, Boyd, you're in the class. Boyd got in the class, he watched the 2 streams, caught up, week 8 comes around, his wife's giving birth in the hospital. And so, Boyd, what are you doing here? I said, well, I missed the first 2. I said, Boyd, your wife's giving birth in the hospital. Do your presentation and get the heck out of here. The next semester I taught this class, 2 women in our Indianapolis, video conference stuff in Indianapolis, were giving birth. They were water broke on Saturday mornings, back-to-back Saturdays. They stayed in the darn class. Said, why are you staying here? We're streaming the class. You can watch it later. They felt so guilty. They brought their babies back the following week, put them under the document camera to prove they actually had a baby. It's a true story. And then last semester I had a woman got pregnant and there was something going on in that class. Water or something. So students miss the class. You can stream the class. You can stream it. Now we're doing that with a decade ago, we would have put up 5 minutes of stuff, 10 minutes. They'd be killing me for taking gigabytes of space. Today, they're streaming my 5-hour class, and no one blinks an eye. It doesn't cost anything. And we got Sergey Brin, we got Berkeley doing this. My former professor at Wisconsin, Rich Lair, he's now at Vanderbilt. His lectures are up. I can watch him 20 years later, and he's still someone I can learn from. I can watch his stuff. It's been streamed up, put up in YouTube, put up in iTunes. You can use tools for webcasting. Webcasting is exploding on college campuses today. Tools like Tegrity are being used. Media Site Live, Echo 360, there's a bunch of these things out there. So webcasting for your students who are absent, sick, conferences, whatever. Problem number 3, you lack facilities and time. You can't build building. Your building's not going to get the endowment money quick enough or whatever, right? So you lack facilities or rooms or time. Again, you can stream your class in for students at remote sites, like Central Florida does. They have a live class like this, full, and another set of hundreds of students in the rural communities of Florida watching from remote sites. A way to help them not have to build so many buildings. They might watch from home. In China, I mentioned SARS. They alternated their classes, face-to-face, 2 weeks, online 1 week, online another week, 2 weeks, face-to-face, 2 weeks online, 2 weeks face-to-face, 2 weeks online, back and forth. English classes at Brigham Young University, where Charles teaches, back and forth. Problem number 4, supplemental activities. You want to supplement your class with interesting and engaging contents. You might go to the Encyclopedia of Life, which is indexing 2.7 million species known to humankind with peer review wrapped around it, with the actual species, migration patterns, pictures, visuals, all sorts of things. It's the Encyclopedia of Life. Pictures online are exploding in Flickr, or another website blinking on the name, everystockphoto.com. After the Winter Olympics, they had tons of pictures that people were putting up and using and so forth in classes. You want to get into photography, geography, culture, meteorology, physics, you can find photos in Flickr or Every Stock Photo to use in your class. Astronomy, there's a new telescope, I guess, in Chile, in the mountains of Chile, that's going to be looking at dark matter in space and making it available to college students as the scientists find out about it. From the rooftop of, any Spanish people in here? Thank you. In Chile, right here above, the new telescope will look for dangerous asteroids and help researchers learn more about dark matter. This large synaptic survey telescope has a combination of mirrors and 3 camera lenses that capture the movements of billions of stars and galaxies. Museum of Online Museum I mentioned. When I was in Columbus, they wanted to take me to the television museum. When I was in Amsterdam a long time ago, I got to the Van Gogh Museum. Well, today you can go online to these museums. OpenCourseWare from MIT is up on the web. These OpenCoursewares could be used in your classes to supplement with videos from a professor at another institution around the world. And I am using many of these in my own classes. I also, if anyone teaches psychology in here, learning theories, I've done an 8-pack, I call it an 8-pack of all learning things. I did videos 2 years ago. They're up on the web if you're interested. Problem number 5, students want to control more of the class. One professor at Fitzer College in California had used YouTube for her whole class. Her whole class was in YouTube. All the lectures she filmed and put them in YouTube. All student projects were in YouTube. And it didn't work. Because YouTube is not an archival system. It doesn't have a library in it to help you find stuff. How YouTube works is to supplement your classes by watching videos or to end your class having students produce a video. To have the whole class on YouTube is not going to work yet. But you can empower students by having them do this final project that's a YouTube-like video. Problem number 6, students aren't prepared for the profession. There are many professional development videos out there to get your students geared to be in physical therapy or to be in sociology or social work or accounting. Any accounting professors in here? We can skip. You know, the accounting profession, by the way, protested online learning. They have protest signs. Online learning is too boring. Well, I took a lot. Believe it, you know. I took a lot of face-to-face accounting, and I believe it. It can't be any more boring than a face-to-face was. Anyhow, online accounting. The Canadians again have gone ahead, and they've built a system where your homework can be graded online. You don't have to wait a week for the instructor to grade it. It's called the Larynx Financial Accounting System. A professor in Massachusetts doesn't use Harvard business cases anymore. Instead, he plants a case writer in a business, and his students have to solve the problem the case writer gives them from the chief financial officer. It's called real-time cases. Collaboration deficit, number 7. There's a tool you don't know about probably called Kalenos. Kalenos is a free tool for project management online and groupware and sharing. That's the interface for the particular tool. It's like Google spreadsheets and documents. It's like Groove, if you've heard of Groove. Microsoft no longer offers Groove. They only offer SharePoint. But for small teamwork, this is a free, simple little tool, Kalenos. But Google Documents, there are other tools out there. Google, the Wave, they've given up on. Yeah, they've given up on Wave. We wave goodbye to the Wave. And I guess in 5 minutes I'll be saying see you later now. Anyhow, Malaysia and Indiana. I had my students in Indiana do collaboration online with students from the Open U of Malaysia. We had paired them up. Each student in Indiana had a partner at the other campus, and together they had to solve a problem, a case, and they gave feedback to other students on their solutions. In Illinois, state a little bit over to the right, they have a professor doing tourism online. He has his students do mock tour packages. They do collaborations with students from other cultures, like Korea, and the students actually come over from Korea and take the mock tour. It really goes far out. Online role play at Tulane University. Students in a renewable energy class take on roles of power traders, power brokers, utility dispatchers, and all sorts of things online. Computer game jams. At Purdue University this year, and many universities around the world, they had a game jam where for a day, students had to design a game that was functional. They had to compete with others on other campuses. So computer science and engineering majors were competing online against one another, building the best games in the world. Problem number 8, students aren't reflecting enough. You can use video if you're in teacher ed, math teachers, science teachers. You can use video in counseling, social work. You can use video in psychology and psychiatry, having students reflect on real-world practices. Reflection is important today, as I mentioned with my R2D2 model. Having students watch videos of famous authors. People have written a book or listen to a podcast from a famous author and reflect on it. Reflection online by watching a keynote from a conference. You might watch this, I don't know. Community building online, number 9. You want to build a community. You can use Ning, as I mentioned earlier, Google Groups, Google Documents to create a class community. Have a class in Facebook, have a class in Ning, where you have a class in Wikispaces where you add resources. You create a mini community. My Wikibook project, we created a community by having a video conference between our site in Indiana and the students at the University of Houston. We had a pre-video conference and a post-video conference before we did the project. We created a little community out of it. I mentioned Ning earlier, I'll skip over that one. Number 10, visualizing contents. Has everyone seen Second Life? Is anyone using Second Life?
I couldn't get it to load, but it looks really fun.
It looks interesting. I'm not a Second Life person. I've heard that this tool is easier and it's new. It's called Open Simulator. I'm just throwing it out there as a possible tool you might consider. It was in the Chronicle of Higher Education a month or so ago. I haven't used that. I've seen Second Life. I've had my students use it. I'm not a virtual worlds kind of person, so I'm not promoting it. I'm just mentioning it.
Well, that is.
I mentioned these video demonstration sites for visual learners. Come on, Arnold.
Well, that is fun.
Thank you, Arnold. So Clip Chef, Monkey See, Monkey Do. Monkey See is a website for video demos. Virtual tours and timelines. You can do a timeline of history. There's a website called the Hyper History site where you click on aspects of the timeline. You can go down to the Byzantine era, Roman Empire, whatever. Hyper History, and it's all hyperlinked. Very, very interesting website. There's a website on Oxford. Get a virtual tour of J.R. Tolkien's homes. I went and did that before going to Oxford. Pretty interesting website. Virtual tours of Nova Scotia and a helicopter ride over the province. Number 11, hands-on learning. There's a website called Rome Reborn 1.0 where you can see coliseums and senate halls and explore them, all online in virtual worlds. Peacekeeping missions online. Intensive care units online. Hands-on learning. Psychology. There's a number of psychology websites. We can do Gestalt experiments, Piaget experiments, and other kinds of things online. Number 12, auditory learning. I mentioned podcasts from Michigan. This is their podcast website for the dentistry program. All students can download every lecture in their program. Chinesepod I mentioned. This is Jenny Zhu, who's the voice of Chinesepod. She got her master's in Australia, came back to Shanghai, was helping teach English there, and they hired her to be the voice of Chinesepod, and she's wonderful. Ken Carroll's her colleague at Chinesepod. The two of them, he's an Irishman in Shanghai. The two of them are fabulous doing podcast shows on learning Chinese. Self-study programs for all languages, Korean, Arabic. In this case, he's learning Arabic. This is a musical acoustics site from the University of New South Wales, where you can hear our instruments sound as they get older. You can see the wave patterns and hear the instruments. It's won many awards for music people. And finally, lack of instructor presence. You can have weekly synchronous sessions with your students in Skype, in MSN, in a chat, in Blackboard chat. In this case, I'm using Breeze or Adobe Connect Pro. Connect to students that you care about them. This is a quick half-hour journey. It was meant to be an hour through blended learning, but as I said, this is something that is rather easy, I think, to explain to people. Blended learning is something you can do because you've been doing it forever. You just haven't called it blended learning, you see. You've been blending in audio tapes. You've been blending in televisions into your classes. I mean, I remember Catholic school bringing the TV in for different lessons and then wheel it back out. You know, so definition of blend is combining online and face-to-face. In this case, we're moving beyond television to the web. The web's become television. Advantages. The advantages are convenience, flexibility, access. The disadvantage, procrastination and trying to do too much. If you procrastinate and don't participate early, so will your students. If you model procrastination, so will your students. If you don't get in, if you're at a conference for a week and you don't get in to give feedback, they'll be off in la-la land if you haven't structured it properly. There are ways to make it flow even when you're gone, but that's for another day's talk. This big disadvantage is trying to do too much, adding more stuff in because it looks interesting and not giving anything up. So we've gone through some examples, some problems. I didn't give you my predictions of the future. They're in the handout. I deleted it because I knew we wouldn't have time. And really, everything's going to be blended. Every course taught in higher education settings by 2020 will be blended in some way, shape, or form. Might be a small blend, might be a big blend, but it will be blended in some way. And we'll be popping into classes from our cameras on our computers or from our mobile phones. There are many challenges in front of us. Resistance is futile. There's the Training Share website. It has the slides up there. The Publication Share site, it has all my publications. I have 2 books for the next 2 questions, and then I'm going to take off. So, who's got a question on blended? She's been asking a lot today and needs a book anyways. What's your first name?
Sheila.
Sheila. Yeah.
Okay, so I teach a computer programming class that's going to be a blended class, and I need to figure out a way to help the students debug their programs. Because ordinarily they would just send it to me, I'd have to debug it, and I don't want to, and send it back to them, and I don't want to do that. So, do you have a recommendation of how I might do that?
Debugging the programs. Computer basic programming goes in this year, so it's showing go in, and this year it came out this way 3 times. I took basic. I'm a good user of technology. Well, there's a number of things you could do. In fact, I mean, you could have your students put their programming code up into a wiki website with peer collaboration built in with the expert. Again, the expert, the person thinks they're high indexing the low end, they become partners and they share their code back and forth, whether they're showing the actual program or just showing snippets of their code and where they might be having problems and being debugging. Now, you also could bring in an expert or 2 from the local communities of computer programming who might have you might have a question time even. Once a week there's a question time and that person's going to be answering a set of 5 or 10 questions. You also might have some kind of professional organization related to computer science that might offer that set of mentors. So I would say either look at professional organizations or look at existing wiki websites for that profession. There might already be a place where they can submit. I know there is. There are places that they can submit their code bugs to and get feedback from people around the world on their problems without you getting involved at all. But I think that's almost getting answered too easily for them. So that's why I recommend the peer feedback and interaction where they're both struggling a bit and helping each other out. That might be the way to start on all this, and maybe even having an index of peer advice that has been given in the past within the class. That once you've done this a number of times, you create an archive of prior, and someone actually at the end of the semester is put in charge of indexing that peer advice so students can use it as a knowledge base, and that knowledge base could grow. I would probably start peer-based, but not ignore the expert possibilities.
Well, I'm going to have them do a forum where they're going to post like facts. So I have this problem, does anybody know how to solve it? And then they eventually will get a long list of how to solve problems. But it doesn't solve their problem when they're having an issue at midnight. They're trying to get their program debugged. And so I'm trying to play with that and see how I'm going to make that work.
You might have, in fact, the in-class mentors that might be made available, those experts, and have everyone solicit times that they're available for.
Yeah.
You have people, usually you have a plan for time slots, and this is a person that's going to be available from midnight to 4 a.m. because that's when they work. That's when I work best. Okay, you got people like that. So I would have them have a sign-up sheet, and you'll be surprised. I think they might, the problem you might have is from noon until 3 in the afternoon. You know, I'm guessing. But yeah. Second question, you'll get a book.
The first time I taught a blended class, I gave up 2 hours of lecture and created 6 hours of work for myself. And it just killed me. So what's a reasonable trade-off for not standing in front of my students, lecturing, creating all this wonderful stuff online, having them do, I have to give feedback. So what's a rational number of hours I should target?
What's your saying?
Yeah.
What Tim said, here's word, the first time, that's the second word he used, the first. First time my department chair taught online, he had 7 students and almost died. And then he became dean. And he said, Curt, you can teach on this class. I said, he almost died with 7, he's got 20, I'm going to die. He said, well, you've been doing blended, you've been getting close. This is 1997, he did it in 96. And I had 20, almost died. And then the next time around I had 30, and it was easy. Next time I had 35, it was really easy. First time you do anything blended or fully online or face-to-face, it's hard. And it is more time, and it is more hours, and you learn some economies of scale, you learn some ways to cut and paste in comments and create an archive of prior work. First time you do any of this, whether it's a face-to-face class, a blended class, or fully online, it can be. You need guidelines and frameworks. Now, he's asking a question about how much time should be invested in each activity. I would go back to saying, how much time do you invest in a technology integration activity in a face-to-face class? And I would try and make that comparable in terms of the amount of time I'm going to invest into a blended. And that's why my book is outlined. I'm going to give you the 100 activities book. I'm going to give you the World's Open book. So if you want to know, I'm going to give you that because it's got things indexed by degree of time, risk, and cost. So you can find low-time activities. Probably about 50 of them are going to be low-time. And stick with those for a while. I would not recommend you spending, how many hours was it for one activity?
For the 2 hours of lecture I gave up, I created 6 hours of work for myself.
Was it reusable work?
Eventually, but I just about killed me.
Yeah, so if it's not reusable work, that's too much time. If it's reusable work, that's not much time at all. If it's something you can reuse for the next 3-4 years in a class, like my 8 videos I did. These 8 videos are 45 minutes long each. I spent a couple days in, but everyone's using them around the world, and I'm using them in my class over and over, and other instructors who teach the same course use them. So you play off all those things, but I think that's too much time for something that's not reusable. But you have to think what the learning payoff is too. So many factors go into this about learning, attitude, satisfaction by them, and then your own personal satisfaction. These are difficult things to weigh, and so I don't have a set time, but I think that's, given what you've said, it's too much. But send me an email and come up and get a book. I will thank everyone for coming all day and bearing with me. You have been bonked. And 3 sessions from me, I've certifiably been bonked for the day, and I do appreciate being brought back up here to Iowa and get a chance to see your beautiful, luscious green, because we're all, the grass is dead down in Bloomington right now. This is really nice to see green, so thank you very much.